Okay, hopefully, I have proven to you that beyond a shadow of a doubt, that door knocking / prospecting / phone calling does work. Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right, so now I can go forward from there. Because what I wanted to talk about was sales follow-up. Write down follow-up. Selling follow-up, general follow-up. I don't care how you categorize this. You need to know this. Prospecting is lead generating. Write that down. Prospecting is lead generating, and following up is appointment setting. Prospecting is lead generating, follow-up is appointment setting. I know, I get you guys shaking your head. Yeah, Neil, we know, we heard, and yet, you'll go out and you'll go door knocking today, you'll go previewing today, you'll go see expireds today, and you will be discouraged because you didn't set an appointment doing that tonight. You can't be that way. You've got to get out of that. This is about prospecting is lead generating. Following up is appointment setting. So let's talk about what is a lead. Okay? What is a lead? What's the difference between a lead for you and a lead for another agent? What is going to be a lead? So some of you have written down that a lead is someone who's going to do something in the next 7 days. Some of you have written down that a lead is going to be someone that's going to do something in the next 30 days. Someone that's going to be doing something in the next 2 months. Someone that's going to do something in the next 6 months. I've even talked to some of you and say someone that's going to do something in the next 12 months. Here's what you've got to do. I don't care what your definition is. I really don't care. What I need you to know is that the longer the time period for the lead, the more leads you will probably generate, and the more difficulty you will have, and the more time it'll take to go through and search out the good lead. Am I making sense here?
Yes.
See, what happens is if you say anyone that's going to do something in the next 6 months or less is a lead to me, then you probably have somewhere between 75 and 500 lead opportunities. Okay? But let's assume for a second that you have just 200. They're in your computer, they're in your pocket, maybe they're on a 3x5 card, however you're keeping them right now. How long does it take for you to go through your leads one at a time? How long does that take? An hour, 2 hours, 5 hours, 200 leads. How long could that take? See, here's the problem. The lead that wants to do something that's going to buy or sell from you in the very near future is probably in the middle of that stack. They're probably in the middle of that stack. And how am I going to find? And here's the problem. By the time you do call that person, or you do go and knock on that door, that person has probably what? Listed or bought or sold this piece of property. And you've missed it. How many times has that happened to you where you've had a lead, you've put it in whatever your follow-up system is, and then somewhere down the road, you say, whoa, I'm just going to call this guy, and you find out that the person had listed a month ago, or they had bought a month ago. We could all probably retire on the leads that got away. Probably retire on the leads that got away. So what I wrote down here, the more leads you have to follow up on, the greater the chance you will have to miss an opportunity. The more leads you have to follow up on, the greater the chance you will have to miss an opportunity. So here's my suggestion. It's not very fancy. It's a system that I still use today. I suggest it, I recommend it. People that are using it, pretty comfortable with it. What you have to understand is that when a lead is out of sight, it is out of mind. Does that make sense? Out of sight, out of mind. If you are supposed to do something, make a phone call, return a phone call, go see somebody, make sure it gets taken care of, and it's not somewhere in front of you, what are the odds of you not following up on that lead? Pretty high, right? Out of sight, out of mind. Circle that. Put an underline. Put a star. Because we've got to focus on it not being out of sight. So, my suggestion is a couple of thoughts. I personally don't think you should work on leads that are greater than 6 months. It's a personal opinion. Probably less than that, even down to 3 months, but definitely no longer than 6 months. And only if 6 months means there's something specific going on in their life. For instance, if a client says to you, I'm going to do something next July or August, and I'm going to sell my house then, some of you say, great, you take the information and you consider that a lead to follow up on. It's nothing until you ask a few more questions. You need to find out from the client what's important about July or August. What's going to happen in July or August to make you list your home or ready to buy at that time? Now we need to find out what the motivation is of the client. If the client says to you, you know, my husband retires at that time, and we're going to move on in our lives are changing, that's probably a good client. If the client says to you, my kids are graduating high school or graduating college at that time, and we're looking to move or downsize or upsize, that's a good client. That's a good conversation. If the client says to you, look, I'm pregnant, and I don't want to do anything until after the baby's born, so it's going to be another 6 or 7 months. Fine. That's probably a good client. That's somebody I would keep in my follow-up system. But if the client doesn't have a good reason for why they're going to do something, then I probably wouldn't follow up on that client. Now here's the caveat. We all have intuition, right?
Yes.
Say yes.
Yes.
We all think they're not maybe completely telling us the truth. That maybe there's some subtext here that we need to work on. So what I would do there is I would get the name and address of the client, name and phone number of the client, and I would put them on a callback in the next week or two. And I'd call them back. Because sometimes, has there ever been a time in your life where you weren't planning on doing anything, but somebody asked you, are you buying a rental? Are you doing this? Are you thinking about moving? Are you buying a new car, etc.? You weren't really thinking a lot about it, but that it came up in your mind, and then all of a sudden that conversation got bigger and bigger and bigger, and a week or 2 or 3 down the road, that client ends up listing their house or buying a house. Does that ever happen?
Yes.
Absolutely. Call them. Email them. Hey, by the way, we talked a week or 2 ago. I just wanted to check. You said you were going to do something in 7 or 8 months. You know, has anything changed in your life? Has anything changed? Is there anything different going on in your life today that might move that up or push it back? Because that could happen. Move it up or push it back. If they're still determined, no, this is what's going on, I'm not going to do anything right now, that's what's happening, then either throw that lead away or decide to keep that lead. Now, if you're going to keep a lead and somebody says, I'm going to do something in 6 months, you take that and cut that in half for the follow-up. Okay? 6-month lead, I'm going to call them back in what?
3 months.
3 months. Maybe even a little bit before 3 months. All right? That's just the follow-up system. Now, the client that you're calling back in 3 months needs to go in some kind of an accordion file. This is getting real scientific, okay? You go down to the Staples or Office Outlook, and you purchase yourself a 1 through 12 accordion file, or January through December accordion file, all right? And then you put the lead in some kind of a file folder or some kind of paper that you're keeping this information on in the month you want to call them. Is everybody with me?
Yes.
You put it in the month. This is not brain surgery. This is not that big a deal. So that's what you do with the older leads. And then every month, the beginning of the month, you pull those leads out and you start making those calls. Now that's the long-term follow-up. But the real money, the real conversation, where you're losing big dollars, is in the now stuff. You all have people that you should be following up on a regular basis, right? Say yes. Yes. You told a client that you were going to do something for them and you didn't do it. Okay? How does that make you look? Let me ask you, let's reverse it. If you follow up, if you go into a car dealership, or you go to buy a washer and dryer, or you go to buy a suit, or you want to go into a clothing store, and they said, well, you know, there's a new model coming out, or there's some new information, or you wanted to know about the supercharger on the new XJL, and you know how many horsepower that's going to generate, you know, and how I can get that car and what it's going to cost, and the salesman doesn't call you back. How do you feel about that salesman? How do you feel? It's a flake, right? What's going on? What's happening? You are given these opportunities every single day to shine in this business, and you're not taking that opportunity to shine. Because all you have to do is return a phone call when you said you were going to. If you told a client you were going to do something, do it. Under promise, over deliver. You with me, everybody? Under promise and over deliver. Now, we're going to the really scientific stuff. You have a lead, and the lead is somebody you need to get in touch with. So what I want you to do is I want you to take an 8.5 by 11, or you can do it a legal size. It's okay. You can do it either way. You can do the more advanced program and have the legal size. And you take and you put the name of the client or the name of the person you need to follow up on this legal pad of paper. And you write down their name and their phone number and perhaps something that might trigger you. You're not going to have very many names on this. It's only people that you have to get in touch with in the next day, 2 days, week, 2 weeks on the outside. This legal pad now stays with you when you're prospecting. Okay, it's right here. You're always looking at it. Remember, what did I say about out of sight, out of mind? It's never out of sight and it's never out of your mind. It's always close to you. When you get in the car, how many times have you gotten into your car, go to drive to an appointment, remember you should have called or you could have called to follow up with a client, but you don't have the information with you, so you're driving to this other piece of property to take a look at it. Now in the future, you have this yellow pad of paper. It's sitting right there, right next to you in the car. Out of sight, out of mind, no more. You're driving, you get stuck in traffic, you pick this up, you go down your list. There's 2 or 3 people on here that you can make phone calls with while you're on your way to your appointment. Is this making any sense?
Yes. Yes.
Simple, easy, works. You already talked to the client, you cross it off. Anything going there, yes or no? No problem. If it's an appointment, you set it up, you go out, you go on to your appointment. Now, here's the next really advanced program. What do you do with this piece of paper when it's full? Okay? I'm not going to tear it off because then I would be screwing up my system. But you tear it off. You tear this off. You go to the next page, which should be clean. If the next page is not clean, then you have to get yourself, make a big investment, and buy yourself another pad of paper. Because you always want this on top, never fold it over. Because then what happens? It's out of sight. It always has to be this way. So you've got this piece of paper, you've torn this off, you've rewritten on the sheet of paper your leads from here, you transfer them to the top of the new page, right? That's in front of you, and you take this piece of paper, very scientifically, and you get yourself a folder and you write on it old leads. And then you put it in your file cabinet, and every time you rip one of these off, it goes into this file folder in your cabinet, so you've never thrown the phone number out that's on here, because have there ever been times when you had written a phone number someplace else, and now you needed that phone number, you go, oh my gosh. So then that's why we get all of these pads of paper and all these things going on. Keep it simple. Keep it very simple. So now, if you'll go to my office later and you ask me for it, there's a file folder. And in the file folder, there's about 15 or 20 different pages from this year. And I'll keep them in by year. Okay? And that's it. It's that simple. It's not brain surgery. You're making it too big a deal here. Yellow pad of paper. Everybody with me on that? Oh, okay. So now I wrote down here, that's all fine and well, Neil, but, you know, I talked to them, I shared with the information, I actually called and said I was going to give them some statistics, and I actually did that. I did my job, and now I have to call them again and talk to them, and I don't like to, what's the word? Bug them. Come on, everybody. I don't want to bug them, right? Well, here's what happens. So, anyway, first write this down before we go into that story. How many deals have you lost in your career from under following up? How many deals have you lost? Well, maybe we won't go to the career. How about in just last 30 days? Okay, that's probably expensive enough. How many transactions have you lost in the last 30 days from under following up? So the next question is, how many deals have you lost from over following up? How many people have thrown you out because you over followed up? Now, we still get back to the question of bugging. So here's some of the scripts I hear. You call up the client. It's a week or two after the open house that you've met them, or after the door knock, and you say this very advanced script that you're using now. Hi, this is Neil, Century 21 Masters. We talked a week ago, and you said you might be selling your house. So are you? And they say, what? Yes, no, maybe, call me back, right? That's your follow-up routine. So what do? The next week, you get on the phone, you call them back, and you say, hi, this is Neil, Century 21 Masters. And we talked a couple weeks ago, and you said you might be listing or selling your house, and you know, I just wanted to see, are you doing that? You getting ready? No, huh? Well, when do you think? Well, you don't know. Okay. So now you generally don't follow up anymore because you don't want to bug them, because you don't know what to say, right? Yes. Right? You don't know what to say. Okay. Write this down. Be a resource center. Be a resource center. Be a real estate agent of knowledge. Know your markets. Be relevant. Be of value. Be relevant. Be of value. Here's a thought. If they're a buyer, make sure they're getting a new list of listings on a regular basis every time a new listing comes out. That in an area or property that they have some potential interest in, they get a particular property comes up to them. Now you can do this through your MLS, and some of you do it pretty well. But do you do it regularly on every client? And do you expand areas? You know, how many times has a buyer said to you, I'll never consider that area. You don't show them anything in that area. I'll never go to that area. A month and a half later, you call them up and they say, hey, I was driving through that area and I stopped at an open house and it was exactly what I wanted and I bought it. Oh, I probably should have called you, huh? Has that ever happened to anybody? Of course. So what you have to do is, even though they say I'm not interested in that area, if there's a particular property that you think they might have some interest in because you've previewed the properties and you know what's going on in the marketplace, you'll send them that information. That's what a professional real estate agent who's a resource person does. And you will get them that information. How about this? With a buyer. Interest rates are going up or they're going down? Interest rates this week went down, right? Okay. So how about calling them up and saying, interest rates went down. Now, a lot of you do that. Say, hey, interest rates went down. And they say, so what? How does that affect me? Why don't you call them, or better yet, email them, interest rates went down 0.25% this week, and in your price range, that would be, your payment last week would have been $800, and this week it's $750. Maybe we should go out and talk about getting you a house this week. You show them the money. Show them the difference. Be of value. Not just generally the rate's gone down. They don't know what that means in English. But they're saving, if you save $100 a month on a loan, that's $1,200 a year. Mr. and Mrs. Jones, if you could buy a house right now, same house, just saved you $1,200. What do you think? Should we go out Saturday or Sunday? You get it? $1,200 a year for 5 years. Now we're talking about $6,000 or $7,000. People stay in a house 10 years. Now we're talking about $12,000. That's the conversation you have with people. Mr. and Mrs. Jones, you're in luck. Just because you waited a little bit here, we're in a little bit of a trough. Rates have been going up. Rates have been coming down. Rates have been going up. Rates are coming down. If we can get you locked in this week, we can get you locked in and save you $100 a month. Now, would that be of value? Would that be important? By the way, is that a great follow-up call? Is that a nice follow-up call? But reverse it. Interest rates went up. Have the same phone call. You know what, Susie and Mary, you're dragging your feet. Cost you $1,200. Interest rates went up. Cost you $100 more a month this time. Now, how many more months, how many more bumps can you afford before you can't afford to buy the house that you started out wanting to buy? We really need to take act. Do you get what's going on here? Well, you're just being a resource center, resource information. Okay, that's the buying side. Now let's flip it over. On the listing side, last week you went and shared with them some of the comps that are going on in the neighborhoods. You shared with them what was listed, what went pending. You have, I think, if you're following up on a seller, the easiest job. Because all you have to do now is call the seller up 2 weeks later and tell them what transpired in the last 2 weeks in their general market or in their city. How many listings got taken since the last time you talked? You keep a little file. You know on this date you gave them this information. On this date you told them about 2 more listings. You told them about 3 pendings. You told them about a couple of closings. Do you have information you can give on a regular basis even though you're only following up every week or 2? Of course you do. Do you get this? Have I lost anybody here? No. Whew. You can have a conversation with the client about interest rates. Interest rates are lower. Your buyer can save probably $100, $150 a month. Now's a great time to get your house on the market because you can save that. It's a conversation you can have with them. But if interest rates go up, you know what? It's a little more expensive for a buyer to buy your house. It's going to cost them $150 more a month. To the money. Don't just call and say interest rates went up. Interest rates went down. That means nothing to buyers and sellers. What means is money. Give them the information. Do the math on it. I wrote down here, follow-up is probably the single most important activity you can be involved with. Follow-up is probably the single most important activity you can be involved with. What I'm finding is that between 90 and 95% of all the transactions that we work on involved some kind of follow-up. Even if you went out and door knocked a house today and they said they wanted to list with you, or they wanted to have a listing appointment with you, you still need to go back to the office, do the information, get all your packages together, do your follow-up, check the area, go out to the client and do a presentation. And then if they don't list then, you still have to follow up with the client to make sure that they do finally list with you. Is that right? Is that right?
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Follow-up is one of the most important things that you can be doing. I wrote down here, even if you don't have a great listing presentation, even if you're not a great prospector, even if you don't know every single script perfectly, if you follow up at a very high level, you will succeed. That makes sense?
Yes.
Are you with me on this? I wrote down here, real estate agents have an easy time saying they will do something. Real estate agents have a very easy time they'll be saying they'll do something. I mean, I get your business plans all the time. You guys are really good at telling me how many days you're going to work. Okay, I'm going to work this many days in this month. Great. Check on you the following week. How'd it go? Well, something got in the way. I wrote down here, real estate agents have an easy time saying they'll do something and a much harder time actually doing it. And I wrote down here, this bad business behavior has got to stop. This is bad business behavior. Bad business behavior has got to stop. I wrote down, today matters. What action will you take today to ensure that you are in the future a follow-up machine? That in everything you say you're going to do, that you do. I wrote down here a challenge for you. A 21-day challenge. Instead of saying, I'll call somebody back and not doing it, the challenge is if you tell somebody in the next 21 days that I'm going to call them back, you call them back. That's the challenge. If you say you're going to do something for the next 21 days, you do it. This is not for the rest of your career, but this is the challenge right now. If you RSVP for an event and you say, I'm going to be part of the prospecting program. I'm going to do an open house. I'm going to take care of this. You do it for the next 21 days. 21 days. That's all we're talking. That's the challenge. If you tell somebody you're going to take care of something, by gosh, you take care of it. You go through a wall for the next 21 days and you take care of it. You honor your words.